Hello everyone, this is Dr. Sunita Bulla. In this session, we are going to discuss about CI/CD for Dockerized apps using GitHub Action. In the last session, we discussed how to deploy Dockerized application in AWS Cloud. In this session, we are going to discuss how to apply CI/CD for Dockerized application in AWS. So to do this experiment, we are using multiple technologies. So here we are using Git, GitActions, Docker, AWS. These are the tools and technologies we are going to use to do this experiment. So first of all, before doing this experiment, we need to uh, complete the pre-requirements. We need to complete pre-requirements. Pre-requirements are first one, e-commerce, full stack app, Git repositories. Okay, whatever are full stack application, front end and back end, the front end and back end should be available on Git repositories. So go to the Git app. In the last, as a part of the last experiment, so we already pushed our front end and back end into AWS. So right, for me, Git Docker e-commerce front end. In the last session, we pushed our front end back end into the GitHub. So see here, Git Docker Git e-commerce front end. The project don't have any Docker file. See here, if you want, you can clone my project repositories. If you have, you can use. You can use or push your project into Git repositories. If you don't have any, I mean, particular application, then simply clone my Git repository into your local system and push same project into your GitHub account. Now this is the front end. Copy the front end URL. Similarly, backend. Backend. So here also no Docker files. Simply it is a front end backend project. It is a Java full stack application. Front end pushed into one repository and backend pushed into another repository. So copy URLs. This is the first pre-requirement. Second one, create EC2 instance with following port numbers. In the last session, we already discussed cloud server is nothing but it's available on the internet IP address. Okay, so everything is related to the protocol. If you want to connect your server, we need to use remote protocols like RDP protocol, SSH protocol, like that. If it is a Windows, we need to use the RDP protocol. If it is a Linux, we need to use SSH protocols. So now we are going to deploy our full stack application. The full stack application having front end, back end, MySQL. So now front end going to deploy an 80 port number, back end going to deploy on 8081 port number, and at the same time MySQL going to deploy on 3306 port number. So right, so first of all, our application, whatever our application, it has to execute and it has to communicate among three containers. So that is the reason we need to add or we need to declare all the protocols inside the EC2 instance security group rules. So first of all, what are the protocols we needed here? First one, SSH protocol. Last session also we discussed this one. First one, SSH protocol. Second one, HTTP protocol, HTTPS protocol. And next, 8081 protocol, 3306 protocol. Actually, we need 80 protocol also. Why? Because front end is going to deploy on 80. But when you call the HTTP protocol, by default 80 port number is available. So 80 port number is available on HTTP protocols. So these are the protocols or port numbers we need to add while creating the EC2 instance. So it is a pre-requirement. First of all, before doing this experiment, what we needed here, we need whatever our full stack application, it should be in a GitHub. Okay. Second one, we need one virtual server, AWS EC2 instance or Google virtual server, any cloud. Second one, we needed one EC2 instance. So, as a part of the EC2 instance, okay, last experiment we used the Linux server for deployment full stack application, right? But in this session, we are going to use Ubuntu server, EC2 Ubuntu instance. Why we need to use Ubuntu instance? So here our experiment is a combination of multiple technologies, Git, Docker, AWS, and at the same time main important part GitActions. Right? When you are using GitActions, the GitActions by default operating system is the Ubuntu operating system. In the GitActions, uh, if you wrote Ubuntu commands, so it will execute without any errors. For example, if you are trying to use a Linux, okay, so it will work, but we need to do the hard work. Why? Because when coming to the Linux, each and every command execution is our responsibility. So now we need to check each and every command is executing or not. So instead of that, simply go through the EC2 Ubuntu instance. It is very flexible to the GitActions Docker. So two technologies, two different GitActions gives the preference to the Ubuntu and Docker gives the preference to the Ubuntu. So now it is a technology friendly. So that is the reason we are using Ubuntu instance for our experiment purpose. Now second one, we need to create one EC2 instance. Right? We already know what is the GitActions. GitAction is nothing but it is a GitAction is one of the platform or dashboard. So it is going to deploy our application without any human interaction. So in the CO1 we already learned if you apply the Git actions for your repository, it's deploying on a Git pages. Okay, without any human interaction, our application is deployed on the Git pages. Similarly here, when you push the repositories into your GitHub, now whatever it's going to deploy our full stack application inside the AWS EC2 instance without any human interaction. So that is our main aim. What is our main aim here? So deploying the application without any human interaction in AWS. Okay. So what is our task here? Simply push our project into GitHub. The Git actions will take the responsibility of entire deployment. In the last session, in the EC2 instance, we executed multiple commands, right? We executed multiple commands for the deployment purpose. Here, we no need to worry about that. Git actions takes the responsibility of our code execution. Now, let's open AWS account. This is AWS account. This is my AWS account. Go to the EC2 dashboard. Now here, create one instance. We are going to create Ubuntu instance, not a Linux. So first, give the server name, my server. Give the server name is my server. And next one, operating system is Ubuntu. Select Ubuntu operating system. Okay. Next one, um, if you are using personal account, then we need to check the three-tier eligibility. T2 micro, three-tier eligibility. See here when you scroll down, multiple types of uh, EC2 instances are available. All are related to the instance marketing. So right, it's depending on the size. If you don't want any free tier, you can select any large one. Then we will get, if you selected other than free tier, it will get the bill. So instead of that, simply go to the free tier eligible. Okay, for me it's showing T2 micro, few systems it's showing T3 micro, whatever your size, if it is a free tier eligible, then we can opt out. Okay, there don't don't see for the size, simply looking for free tier eligible. This instance is free tier eligible. So take this one. Next one, key pair. Key pair plays very important role here. So if you have the key pair, then you can use the key pair. If you can select the key pair. If you don't have a key pair, click on new create key pair, enter the name and click on create key pair. When you click on create key pair, it will download PEM file. See here AWS. Uh, AWS PW1. Okay, right? This is the file. So similarly, take the key pair. I already have a key pair. Take the key pair. Next, under the network settings, I already told you. Here we need to create one EC2 instance by using these following protocols: SSH, HTTP, HTTPS 8081 3306. Right? Now here SSH already added. Select HTTP, HTTPS. Still two more protocols are there. So 8081 3306. We will add later. Now these are the configuration details. I'm repeating again. First one is a name. Enter the name. Select operating system. Ubuntu operating system. Select free tier eligible. And next create a key pair. If you have a key pair, select. If you don't have a, then click on create new pair. That file is very important. under the network settings, SSH, HTTP, HTTPS. So add these three protocols. That's it. Click on launch instance. Now go to the instances. Now write. So this is the Ubuntu instance. This is the Ubuntu instance it created. Now click on the instance. Here we need to add the two more protocols, right? 8080 So now if you want to add these protocols, scroll down. This is the easy to information. Scroll down. Under the security, there are three protocols added. See here, one is 80.22.443. HTTP, HTTPS, and SSH. Alright, now this is a security group. Click on security group. Edit inbound rules. There are three protocols added. Add two more protocols. Custom TPC, TCP, 8081. Custom TCP 8081 anywhere IPv4. Next one, custom TCP. Instead of that, go to select MySQL. MySQL 3306 anywhere IPv4. So right, for the testing purpose, we are not restricting any MySQL data. So if it is restricted, if you want to restrict, then click on my IP. Okay, right. So these are the connection details. These are the connection details. Now HTTP, SSH, HTTPS 8081 These are the protocol. Click on add rules. Oh, sorry. So these are the protocols. Now click on save rules. Right. So now see here, these are the protocols added. Go to the dashboard. Now EC2 instance. Here we created one server. That's it. Okay. We no need to open this EC2 instance. We no need to worry about that one. For the deployment purpose, we no need to connect. We no need to connect our EC2 instance. Why? Because GitActions will take the responsibility for the deployment. Okay. Here, what we need to do? We need to check the IP address. We need to copy the IP address. Once it is created, copy the IP address. Remove to open. So now IP of the EC2 instance is 35.142.47.280. So this is my EC2 instance IP address. This is the pre-requirement. We have a project. We have a server. Now let's start the experiment. Okay. Before doing applying Git actions for e-commerce application on AWS by using the Docker. Now pre-requirements are e-commerce, Git repository. Second one, all the protocols and network should be uh, friendly. So right, we need to add these things. Now next, for applying the CI/CD, we already know how to deploy the Fullstack application in AWS or local system using Git repositories. Alright, last experiment, skill experiment 11. Uh, let's see, let's understand skill experiment 11. So skill experiment 11. See here, we pushed our project into GitHub and simply we created Docker files, Docker file front end, Docker file back end, engineering file, Docker compose file. Then we ran our project. Right. Similarly, here also we are going to do the same thing. Here also we are going to do the same thing. So for this purpose, first of all, practical 6. Alright, here create one folder name is GitActions hyphen AWS Docker e-commerce. Okay, so what is our project name? GitActions AWS Docker e-commerce Fullstack application e-commerce project. Right, now here open this folder with the VS Code. Okay, wait. Before doing this one, we need to do something. First of all, pre-requirement, right? Pre-requirement completed. Now, step 1. First step, what we need to do? We need to create one GitHub repository and configure with AWS EC2 instance. Now see here what we need to do. First step, pre-requirement we have already completed. We have a repositories, we have a server. Now what we have to do? So what is the task of the Git actions? When you put the code into Git repositories, it has to perform. Automatically it has to perform uh, deployment. Alright. So for that purpose, we need to give the full powers to the Git repositories. Okay. Now when you configure your Git repository with the AWS, now without any human interaction, the Git actions will directly communicate with your EC2 instance. Okay. So that is the reason, first of all, we need to configure AWS details with the GitHub. Next here, for the AWS related, we need to here we need to configure two parameters. First one is a host, second one is SSH key. First one is a host, so second one EC2 SSH key we need to use. EC2 host is nothing but IP address. Host is nothing but EC2 IP address. What is EC2 IP? Now this is EC2 IP address. So EC2 IP address. Okay. Now second security key. Security key your p.pem file. EC2 instance dot keeper EC2 instance keeper file content. Okay, that is a SSH key. Okay, let's do the first step. First, what we need to do, we need to create a Git repository and configure. And now, same name we are going to use. Go to the GitHub, click on new repository, enter the details, GitActions, AWS, Docker, e-commerce, right? Enter them, cursor. Now here, these are the commands, alright? These are the commands we are going to use. First of all, copy these commands. Okay. Before pushing the content, what is the purpose we gave? We need to configure the details, right? So, GitHub repository created. Next one, configuration purpose. Okay, if you want to configure AWS into Git repository for the deployment purpose, it absolutely available. Right now, if you want to deploy your application into Google Cloud by using AWS GitActions, then it is also possible. Then whatever your deployment configure inside the GitActions, it will the GitActions will take the responsibility of your deployment. We no need to worry about that. So first of all, go to the settings. Under the settings, scroll down. Under security, we have a secrets and variables. We have a secrets and variables. Now click on actions. Now click on actions. Now this is the secrets and variable dashboard. Now scroll down, repository secrets. Okay. When I push my code, what it has to do? It has to, when I push my code, it has to deploy the application into the AWS, right? What is the task of the Git action here? If the Git action connect to the EC2 instance, it installs all the softwares. It installs Git, it installs Docker, it installs Docker Compose, whatever software it installed. Then, after installing the software, it copying our code, whatever code inside the Git repository, that it retrieve the content and repository into um, here. Now here, click on new repository secret, add EC2 host, EC2 underscore host. I already told you, copy the IP address, paste here. Here, very careful. If you give the space, even it won't take. Okay, don't give any space here. EC2 host, click on add secret. Now similarly, SSH key. Click on new repository secrets, EC2 SSH key. Now where is the SSH key here? Go to the downloads, whatever .bem file. This is the key pair file. Open .bem file, open with notepad, copy entire content. Copy this entire content, paste here. Copy entire content, paste here and add secret. EC2 host, EC2 SSD. Now configuration completed. Okay, thus get repository. What is the name of Git repository? Git AWS Docker e-commerce, right? Now the Git repository having the all rights to deploy project, whatever project in, we are pushing into AWS easy to instance. We are not giving entire AWS access. We are giving the access of easy to instance only. We are giving the access of easy to instance only. Right? Now see here, just create a GitHub repository, configure with the EC2 AWS EC2 instance. Okay. Second one, update front-end API calls with AWS EC2 IP address. We already know in the last class we already discussed it. Okay, if you are working with the local system, so now we use the localhost as a localhost colon 8081 slash API slash product as a API call. So when you are working with the cloud, okay, so now before the local system, if you are working with the local system, what we will use localhost colon 8081 slash API slash products. So this is our API call. But when coming to the AWS EC2 instance, instead of localhost, we need to enter the IP address. So now we need to use the IP address colon 8081 slash API slash products. Okay, so this is the way we need to update our front-end API calls. So where is our front-end project? My front-end back-end project available in a Git repositories. Okay, go to the repositories, e-commerce front-end, Docker Git e-commerce front-end. Click on this one, Docker Git e-commerce front-end. This is the front-end project. Now go to the SRC services. Under the services, Arc service, right? Here edit the file. Now replace with our IP address, easy to instance IP address. Okay, commit changes. Similarly, remaining files also. Card service instead of localhost. Click commit changes. Every time we need to commit the changes. Product service. Okay, now commit changes. 3 files updated. 3 files updated. Whatever our GitHub front-end project, back-end project, both files are updated. Okay, right, front-end and back-end both. Right. Now here come to our directory. Now come to the directory. First, what we have to do, open this folder location with the VS Code. Now open this project. Here, copy paste all the files. Okay, whatever files we used in the last experiment, we know already. We know already. Skill 12, Git, Docker, Git, Fullstack. These are the files we are going to use. Now copy these files. Paste here. So write Docker file frontend, Docker file backend, Nginx file, Docker compose file. We are already familiar about these files. We are using from last 3 experiments onwards same file. Right? Docker frontend. Here update your GitHub URL. Docker Git e-commerce frontend. So my URL is Docker Git e-commerce frontend. And similarly backend file. Here replace your with your Git repository space followed by the dot. Okay. Here also. Okay. Next one. Okay. If you push the what is our aim here? Front end is available in one repository, back end is available in one repository, server is available in a AWS cloud. Okay. What is our main aim here? When I push the project into GitHub, the GitHub platform, GitAction platform has to take the responsibility to deploy our application into the AWS. Okay. For that purpose, what we have to do? We need to create one workflow, right? In AWS, in a GitActions CI/CD pipeline, we call it as a workflow, right? In the same location, create one folder. Folder name is .github. Inside the .github, create one folder. Folder name is workflows. Now inside the workflows, create one file. File name is deploy.aml file. Okay, this is the workflow file. This is the workflow file. Right? Now I will explain the script. We already know the get actions, right? The get actions file always starts with the name, and when the push event occurs inside the main branch, it's going to deploy. Okay. So CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment means whenever changes occurred in a repository, then it's going to deploy everything again. So that is called CI/CD. Now here, next one jobs. What are the jobs here? Deployment. Job is deployment on Ubuntu server. So we already know these steps. Check it's creating the repository, checking the files. Next one, it's going to copy files into the EC2 instance. Next, by using the secret host and secret key, the Git repository going to connect with our AWS EC2 instance. Okay. Now here in the EC2 instance, it's going to create one folder. Folder name is e-commerce Fullstack. Okay. This folder going to create inside the AWS cloud. Next, so deployment. Here server. So next one deployment. Deployment EC2 instance. What we have to do? Take the host and SSH and IP address and the password. Take the IP address and password. Then after that create one folder. Folder name is e-commerce Fullstack. Install the Git first. Install the Docker next. And finally install the Docker Compose. Okay. Here finally we install Docker Compose. Then after installing the Docker Compose, now here Docker Compose down, Docker Compose up. Okay. What is meant by Docker Compose down? If any containers with the same name, it's going to delete that containers. It's free up in the free up our uh, predefined containers, predefined port numbers. Okay. So now copy this script, paste here. Copy script and paste here. Now action file also ready. Alright. Next what we have to do? We created one repository. Recently we created one repository, right? GitActions, AWS, Docker, e-commerce. This is our GitActions, AWS, Docker. Okay. So this is the project, right? This is the repository. Now copy these commands. Copy these commands. Push your code into Git repository. So now see here, all of you, just what are the files here? First one is Docker frontend. The Docker frontend going to clone frontend project from the Git repository and going to deploy on the container. Right? Similarly, backend. Backend also going to clone with the Git, and then if it is required, you can push your uh, project in your repository. So right, so everything is fine. Terminal command prompt. Where is command prompt? Okay. Here select command prompt. Now copy pushing commands. So our project, whatever our project, available in GitHub. Alright. So now refresh here. So now see here, whatever our files, front end, back end, compose, nginx, and workflow. Alright. So experiment completed. So right, how it is completed? We didn't deploy any application. We didn't do anything in an AWS, right? But our experiment completed. Why? Because so now we no need to worry about that. Whatever whatever your project, whatever your project related file, simply push into GitHub, write the workflow, or like if it is deployment workflow. If it is a if it is integration workflow. Alright. So now files created. How to check the output? Before going to check the output, click on deploy.yaml. So now here view runs. Check the status. Now see here setup completed. Job created. Next building completed. And repository. It's went to repositories, front and back end repositories, and it's downloaded front and back end repositories, and those whatever those repositories copied into EC2 instance, whatever those repositories copied into EC2 instance. Now see here we are given credentials, right? IP address and SSH key. Those are getting here through that values. Data transferred from Git repository to EC2 instance. Now next, now it's going to download. We should wait. Here it's going to execute front end and back end. Oh, perfect. See here, everything is completed green color. Everything is completed. Deployment also completed. Okay, what we did here, simply we did only uh, three steps. First one, we created repository and configured with the AWS secret values. Second one, in a front-end project or back-end project, update the API calls or any localhost related things. So next, third one, create following files for deployment and CI series. So what are the files we already know? Docker file dot front end. Next, Docker file dot. Next, nginx dot conf. Next, Docker compose .yaml file, and finally workflow deploy .yaml file. So now create these files, create and push following files into GitHub for the deployment purpose. Okay, now GitActions showing status is successful, everything is available. Now everything is available. Now how to check the output? Okay, deployment completed. We are saying deployment completed. But how to check the output? Go to the EC2 instance, public v4, IPv4 or public DNS. You can go with anyone. Either IPv4. Now paste here, enter. When you click on the IPv4, very first we will get the error. So what is error? Because what is error here? Our application don't have a security certification. Okay, we didn't included any security certification. That is the reason. Double click on IP address. Now here remove HTTPS. In the HTTPS remove S. Press enter. See here. So whatever our full stack application deployed without human interaction, the GitActions takes the responsibility to deploy our application on the AWS. Okay. For example, if this application is completed, okay, in a front end or back end or your repository, any pushes like any changes reflected, the GitActions recycle the all the steps and uh, changes will reflect immediately to the customers also. Okay, check front end and back end is connecting or not. So perfect. See here, sign up successful. Front end and back end communicating each other. Front end and back end communicating each other. So this is the way by using the Git actions we are going to deploy our application. It is not only this one. Whenever you push the changes into Git repositories, the Git actions automatically update the changes, and those changes will deploy on a server. Okay. Thank you everyone.